Squash and stretch are terms that come from the early days of animation, and they're very apparent in Walt Disney characters. Whenever you watch Mickey Mouse or Goofy or any of those characters walking, they exhibit quite a bit of it because they have this exaggerated motion. I'm going to use our friend Bob the Blob again, and we're going to show you what squash and stretch look like. Now, an indication of what squash would be is when this character is falling and hits the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Bob right about here, and on frame 10, I'm going to press F6 on the keyboard, and we're going to move him down to the bottom of the stage. And then, about 2 frames later, I'm going to press F6 again, and we're going to hold down the Option or Alt key on the keyboard, and we're going to squash him down like so. And I'm going to give him a little bit more of this squash action by stretching him out like so. And on frame, let's see, 12, we'll go ahead and add another keyframe. And we will return him to his normal size by holding the Option Alt key again to put him back to where he was. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like by just scrubbing the timeline without adding our tweens. As you see here, when he hits the ground, we get this nice flattening out, and he pops back up. And of course, if he were to pop back up and he's a blobish material, we need to have him do a little bit of a settle. So on F6, I'm going to just squash him down just a little bit more so he can settle. And then on frame 17, or 18, we're going to put him back to where he was. So once again, before we add our tween, let's go ahead and manually scrub the timeline. He's in the air, he's on the ground, he squashes, he comes back to his full volume, jiggles a little bit, and settles. Now let's go ahead and click anywhere in our layer name, and we're going to add our tween. We're going to go to Tween, Motion, and let's go to the beginning and press Enter or Return to see the animation. That's an example of squash. Now let's go ahead and look at what the opposite would be, and that would be stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these frames here. We're going to go back to the beginning. Well, actually, I'm just going to start from scratch. I'll go to Revert, and we'll bring Bob the Blob back to his original state when we first opened the file. Let's resize this window a little bit. And now what we're going to talk about is stretch. Now, an example of stretch could be when Bob is about to jump into the air. So what we're going to do is we're going to have him jump in the air, and we're going to stretch him up as he does it. So on frame 1, we're going to have him as his regular size. And to get him ready to jump, we're going to go to frame 3, press F6, and we're going to hold the Option or Alt key on the keyboard and stretch him down, or squash him rather. And then on frame 5, let's press F6 again, and we're really going to stretch him out. So we're going to hold Alt or Option and squish him up like this and get him ready to jump into the air. So let's go ahead now and move him up a little bit like so and really squish him in. And let's test this out. Now, I like to test my stuff out before putting a tween in there just to see how the animation looks while it's in this rough shape. Now on frame, let's see here, 10, since he's jumping in the air, he's going to go a lot slower than coming down. So we'll press F6 again, and we'll move him into the air, like so. I'm just holding down the Shift key, the Shift key to move him into the air. Now let's add our tween and see what we have here. Let's press Enter or Return, and that's an example of stretch. Squash is good for when something's hitting the ground or hitting a wall, and stretch is good for something springing into action.